Okay.
So we can talk while we're waiting for everyone to come, though, right? So are all of you from St. Michael's?
Yeah.
No, not. Oh, good. Okay, so that's
Some are not, yeah.
So what's your name and what grade are you in?
I'm in 8th grade and my name is Catherine.
Catherine, 8th grade. Okay.
I'm in 7th grade and my name's Michael.
Okay.
I'm in 8th grade and my name's Sadie.
Okay. So we have 8th graders here. That's interesting.
I'm Sophie and I'm in
7th grade, Sophie. Okay.
Katie's sitting here.
You know what? She's here. It's her seat. All right. Tell Katie to talk to me if she has a problem with that. What's your name?
I'm Molly and I'm in 5th grade.
Molly in 5th grade. I have a whole book series about someone named Molly.
Is it Dead City?
Dead City's all about Molly. Yeah. Okay. I'm gonna now. Oh, you're gonna hide in the back. Are you Dean? I've heard so much about you, Dean. What grade are you in, Dean? 8th. So we have a lot of 7th and 8th. That's great. Normally I get 3rd and 4th.
3rd and 4th?
Yeah. So this is nice.
Got an older crew today.
We have, and it's always interesting to see who sits up front, who sits in back, who stands around by the stairs so they can escape. Yeah. We've seen it all.
This is typical for an Indiana. You say, start at 2. So
No, it is an island, right? It's
Yes.
I grew up on an island nearby. Island town.
Island time.
My wife upstairs. She's from the desert of California, and when we moved to Florida, we were down the Keys, and we went to some store, and it said opened at 9, and we were there like at 9:15. And she's like, "There's not even here. What kind of place is this Florida?" And the guy walked by and goes, "Lady, we're on an island. Relax."
I could have
It was a
gotten those.
Birkenstock store. It's like, if you're expecting prompt behavior at a Birkenstock store on Key West, you are just missing the point of Florida island life. Okay, so now we have. All right, so we're good. I think, will we wait for a little bit more? Are you ready to go? You tell me what you think.
What time is it now?
Okay, we've got a few more working.
Yeah.
Still trying to make their way up. Okay.
That's okay with me.
We'll give them a minute.
So we can start with questions for you guys. If there's anything you want to know or talk about or whatever, it doesn't have to be about me. I can answer for any writer. We're all part of a club. We're all part of the same club, and we talk every week in little groups, which is actually more true than you might imagine. So anything you're wondering, if you want to talk about, is one of these the people whose seat I gave away? Is that? No. Okay.
There we go.
I just want to know if I have it.
So can you tell Mr. Ponti what book you've read of his so far?
City Spies.
You read City Spies? You've already read it, or you just got it and are going to read it?
Our entire school.
Oh, my favorite school in America.
There you go.
Yes. I haven't even read. My son hasn't even read it. How ridiculous is that? I'm like, you could at least lie to me and say that you have.
Read it later.
It's a funny thing about kids, though. So, all joking aside, I am friends with a lot of middle grade writers, and there's a group of about 8 of us that have a Zoom session every week, and it's funny. Often our kids are totally not interested in the books that we write, but are totally interested in the books everyone else writes, and it's just like very upsetting. And
It's a support group.
yeah, it is. So I had the other day I was in Texas and I met up with Christina Soon-Tornvat, who won 2 Newbery medals last year. She wrote all 13. She wrote A Wish in the Dark. We had pizza, and I asked her kids. I go, "Oh, so have you read these books?" And they go, "No." I'm like, "Oh my goodness." They're like the 2 biggest award-winning books of the year. Your mom wrote them in your house, and they read. It's not like, "Oh, we don't read." It's like, "Oh, we read." We hear her talk about it. We don't want to read it too. It's just like, okay. So anyway.
So as you're writing, do you read your rough drafts to your family out loud? Will they listen to you?
My sad, tragic wife back there in the corner had to ride the whole 3 hours from Orlando today, dealing with the fallout of her comments in the first 5 pages of City Spies 4. City Spies 4.
Wow.
So yes, she reads everything. She's the better reader. And she was a journalism major, so she's a good editor. So she reads everything. She tells me usually in very kind of veiled, like, I'm like, "Well, what's the part?" She goes, "I don't know, but," and I'm like, "Ah." And then I get in the car for 3 hours and make her go line through line and do it. So yeah, there's a lot of reading in that. There's a lot of unpretty parts It's like making sausage. You really don't want to watch a book being written, right? It's just, you just want to enjoy it when it's done. So, yes.
Okay. Well, good afternoon, everybody. Welcome. I'm so glad everybody showed up today. We were wondering with this crazy weather.
Yes, it is.
You never know what's going to happen. Well, my name is Dearsha Johnson. I'm the Children's Department Specialist here at Story and Song, and I hear some more feet on the stairs.
And the troops have arrived. Come on, you can get a seat.
Hi, everybody.
Well, there we go.
They're trickling in island time.
Is that one family? With a lot of kids, and there's the triplets, quadruplets. What we got there? Well, I'm glad the couch was left open for you guys, because it's a perfect fit for the three of you. Come on in.
Welcome. As I said, we're just getting started. Okay, so this is Mr. James Ponti.
Hi, everybody.
He is a New York Times best-selling author, and he has at least 3 series that I know about: the Dead City Saga, the Framed series, and the one that I'm reading right now, which is City Spies. So we're just going to talk up here for a little bit. We're going to do a little trivia in between, see how much you guys know about Mr. James Ponti and his books, and maybe we'll even do a drawing or 2.
And answer questions, right?
And answer
we'll
questions.
definitely
Absolutely
answer
answer questions.
So, so I'm really excited to be here, and it's been interesting because, Ms. Hodge reached out to me, seems like a year ago. With COVID, everything seems longer. And, so some of you I talked to going into the end of the school year last year and back again this year. And so it's really exciting. I've never had this experience before where we've kind of done things over time. And it's very exciting to be here. Like I said, we just drove up from Orlando this morning. It rained every drop of the way. So I thought there's a decent chance nobody will be there. So I'm really happy that you guys came. We are going to do some giveaway stuff. So not too exciting, but I have special bookmarks, invisible ink pens, my brand new, I made them myself, ordered them myself, the company made them, stickers for City Spies 3. I got book plates to sign for you, and then somewhere over here, and then, oh, yeah, here. It's here. Here. We're going to give away a copy of City Spies 3, which doesn't come out until February. So we have an advance copy. So we'll figure out a way to do that.
There was a lot of gasping.
But it's the only one, and I think it's the best one yet. Hope it is, because I should be getting better as we go. So we got some stuff, and we're going to have a great time, I hope. So why don't you start, Dearsha?
All right. Well, Mr. Ponti, I just
one thing.
Sure. Shall I
You guys have read the books. Well, or some of you have. So I have a rule, which is, if you've read the book, then you know my secrets, which means we're friends, so you can call me James. So everyone call me James. Let's get rid of Mr. Ponti. And I just feel real awkward with that one anyway. Obviously, me wearing long pants was already a challenge today. So Mr. Ponti might put me over that. So please,
Okay,
James.
James.
Yeah. Okay, now we're ready.
Okay, James, well, thank you for coming. And I just have to know, what inspired you to even be a writer?
Okay, sure. Come on in. We were waiting for you specifically to get started. No, I'm kidding. Come on, have a seat. It's fine. So I grew up not far from here. I was trying to figure out, because you have to take with the river and all like that, but I grew up in Atlantic Beach, which is just outside of Jacksonville. So I grew up in a town just like this. And, writing was always the thing that I loved. But I was a terrible reader. I struggled reading growing up. For those of you on Monday who will be in the school presentation I do, I talk about that more in depth, so you'll hear a little repeat. But I just was a really slow reader, and I struggled with it. But I loved writing. In 5th grade, I had this amazing teacher named Mr. Prothero, and he really encouraged us to be creative. And we wrote poetry in the class, and I thought, I want to be a writer. I just don't know what kind of writer I want to be. And I didn't think that I could be a novelist or write books, nonfiction or whatever, because I hardly could read them, right? You know, I was such a struggle to read them. So I focused my energies on learning how to write scripts. So I went to college and majored in screenwriting. And when I got out of college, I started working at Nickelodeon and Disney Channel and PBS, and I wrote kids shows with them for a long time. So for me, it was always, writing was the thing, first of all, that I thought I was, if not good at, could be good at.
Yeah.
It was the way my brain worked. I came from a family that liked to laugh a lot. My mom told stories. She told them when they were true, but we knew they weren't true, you know, and so it just, storytelling was a big thing for us, and it just seemed like the natural progression. And so for me, it was just always the thing I wanted to do. And I think my mother was a painter, and then she was a travel agent, but I think more than anything, she wanted to be a writer. And so she probably, when she would see any interest from me as pursuing this, where other parents might be like, is that practical? Yeah. Can you make a living at it? Which are all reasonable questions. My mom's just like, do that, no problem. And so that's it. And then I don't know how to do anything else. So there was a point where maybe now 15, 16 years ago, where I thought my TV writing career had kind of just hit this kind of dead end. And I thought, I need to find a new job. I have a wife, I've got kids, we've got a house, you know, and I didn't qualify for anything. I couldn't figure out anything. I tried to get I thought, well, I've written TV shows. Can I get I couldn't get a teaching certificate because my degree was in screenwriting, which is not a real degree as far as the education department is. And so all of a sudden, I talking to my wife, I think I have to keep writing because I don't know anything else to do. And that was literally at the point when I said to her, you know, maybe I should try to write a book. And I love it. And I love writing books. It is so much fun. And I just finished in television. I ended up working for NBC Sports and Golf Channel for the last 15 years, mostly producing TV. And I just got out of that a year ago, and I'm just doing this now, and I love it, love it, love it. It's a very long answer for a very straightforward question.
No,
so
it was a great answer. I couldn't help but wonder as you were talking, did you find screenwriting just as easy as novel writing, or is there a difference?
I don't think any of it is easy.
Okay.
You know, you have an aptitude for it, but anything that you're gonna have to work at it.
Right.
You know, that's part of it. Storytelling in screenplays is different than storytelling in books, and I think it affects the books that I write. So sometimes people will tell me, oh, I read your book and it reads like a movie. And I don't know if they're being, you know, like, doesn't read like a real book, or if they're like, oh, I really like it. But I think that's the nature of how I write. And there are a number of really good, really successful middle grade and young adult authors out there, and I could list them off for you now, who all started in screenwriting. So Suzanne Collins, who's a really close friend of mine, Stuart Gibbs, Max Brallier, who writes The Last Kids on Earth, Shannon Messenger went to the same school I did, although like 25 years later. And you go on, Ransom Riggs. I think even John Green was looking at film. And I think we're at a time where that story pace comes from TV is kind of good. But what's really funny is with binging television now, TV is becoming more like books. Like, I'm going to watch all 10 episodes of this season, and they're like chapters in a book. And it's really, now the experiences are kind of merging. I think that's off the track though. So yeah, I like them both. I love doing both, but the biggest difference isn't so much the aptitude for it. It's that TV writing and film writing and all plays, all that stuff. It's a group activity, and this is very lonely, you know, and not in a bad lonely way, but it's like, no, this is, and I think I was ready at a point in my life to say, you know, decisions that are good or bad, at least they're all mine. Yeah.
Wow. What's the first series you actually wrote? Was it The Dead City? Because you were telling me there was another book.
Well,
books in your
I did. So I was at Nickelodeon doing a show that your parents watched when they were growing up. That's how old I am. It was called The Mystery Files of Shelby Woo. And they decided to have a book series based on the TV show.
Okay.
And there were two writers on the show, and we both said, oh, we want to write a book. And they literally said to us, you guys can't write books, you're not real writers. And we're like, holy cow, what a thing to say. And we're like, you know, and then I think I said something snarky back like, this is a book based on a Nickelodeon show that's like 100 pages long. That's not a real book. So I think I can match your not a real thing. And we begged and begged and begged, and we each got to write one of the books. And so that was really the first thing. I don't count those because those are based on other people's ideas, even though the stories were mine. But the funny thing was they asked me to write 2 more, and they didn't ask the other writer to write any more. And that's funny because the other writer ended up writing The Hunger Games. But at the time, I would joke with her all the time, and I'd say, "Oh, Suzanne, it's a good thing we write TV for a living, because if we wrote books for a living, you'd go hungry because you're no good at it." That's why, it's because we were obnoxious that way to each other. And she was also one of the ones who couldn't write a book, right? And so we proved that different. And so I did some of that. I wrote romantic comedies for high school girls under a different name because they thought that high school girls didn't really want to know what I said about romance. And I don't really count those. I did at the time, and I'm not ashamed of them, and they're funny. But I really think of Dead City as the beginning of me seriously saying, no, you're going to try to write books, and they're going to come out in hardcover and then in paperback, and they're going to be a series, and that whole effort.
Now I have to ask you, I've only delved into City Spies myself, but
the others are no good. That's no problem.
Which of the series is your favorite?
There is not a favorite. We get this a lot, and I think now you may be saying it, when people ask that, I think sometimes they're trying to say, what should I read first? I can't read 9 books at once, whatever. And it's really your taste. For me, in an odd way, I think of all the books as one story, even though they're different series. In my mind, they exist in this, what I call the Pontiverse, which is this shared universe of storytelling that every now and then, and some kids, because kids are great readers, kids are awesome. Adults, not so much to me. They're not as interesting to me, because kids will write me and they'll say, I noticed that the school they mentioned in City Spies is the school Molly goes to in Dead City. And I'll say, you're like one of the only people who notices that. But yes, that's absolutely true, because to me, they're all part of it. So I have different favorite moments throughout, but right now I love City Spies because I'm working on it. But actually this week I was just talking to my editor about what the next series will be. And so part of me is kind of in my head thinking about that, so City Spies is a great place to begin. If you're wondering, and if you like action and you like really tough girls, then Dead City is a great place to be. And if you like mysteries, then Framed is a good place to be. But hopefully they're all good. Hopefully they're all worth reading.
I think so. Well, then with City Spies, I couldn't help but, I love City Spies and I love all the characters. And I wondered if you might have had a favorite character and whether or not you stayed with that favorite as you were writing, or if you kind of developed one that, because they tend to develop themselves, as you're writing.
There is that. That's actually a much more critical question than what's your favorite. So people ask, what's your favorite book? And I try not to play favorites in the same way you try not to play favorites with kids and all that kind of stuff. With characters, you can't. You can't have a favorite character. And the reason is, if you do, the book will become unbalanced, because you will be, well, I want the good things to happen for Brooklyn, and I don't really care about Rio. So, there are readers out there. Again, this is a great part of it. Whenever I meet readers, I ask them, who's your favorite character? And all 5 characters get named, right? It's not like, and not even one more than the other so much. If you have a whole book that's totally ignoring one, then that reader's unhappy. But more important, you tend to show favoritism. And when you're writing, this is the hardest part of it. It's because I care about, I know they're fake. It's not like, they're real people to me, but I care about them, and you want things to work out for them. But you can't. Things have to go wrong for some, and they have to make mistakes, and they have to do stupid things, and they have to do things they need to apologize for. And so you can't play favorites. That said, the secondary characters sometimes jump out for me, because a lot of times I'll have a secondary character who is initially, like there was a character in the first Dead City book who was supposed to be in for half a page. And by the 3rd book, I got a note from my editor saying, you're writing too much about this character for someone who's not, because I just loved him and what he did, and I was able to use him. Mother is the father, which is kind of the fun of it in the City Spies books. And Mother is probably the closest one to, because I'm a father in life, and so Mother's the one I identify with the most. But you try not to do that too much. I really like, though, if anyone's read City Spies, True, who is the person from MI6 who oversees all of it. She's one of the ones who has gone from small to bigger to bigger to bigger still.
Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting. No, I mean, it just as a writer myself, I wanted to ask, because you do tend to kind of see one character and then you start writing one and all of a sudden they just run off the page.
Yeah,
with the story.
you want it to come to life, and you want,
do.
and they come to life in part because not just that you give them good traits, but that you give them real problems.
Yeah.
So one of the things that, I write series about zombie hunters, mystery solvers that work with the FBI, and spies who work for MI6. So that's not really realistic for the life of most 12 and 13-year-olds. So I feel like the thing I need to do on the flip side of that is make everything else as realistic as possible. So the relationships that they have with each other have to be real, and you really need to give them enough so that you go, no. And even in the car right now, my wife, we're working out City Spies 4, and I'm really been grumpy for about a week because it's not what I want it to be, and we're saying that when she's defending characters based on her knowledge of them, having read these books as I've done them, and I'm like, oh, that's right, you're right. That would be more fitting for her, But for each book, for example, this is one thing I just ran over her with, is everyone has to have a problem that's a unique problem to them, that's distinct to their personality, that they have to solve over the course of the book. And that's the problem of writing 5 main characters instead of 1, which is why this book that I intended to be 275 pages turned out to be 431.
Always.
I was off by 155 from my goal. So there's that.
It's great. I mean, it's a great series and great so far. That because it's the only one I've read so far. But I plan on.
There's plenty more.
Others. Yes.
Yeah, plenty. Don't rush, because you'll have another one in February, and then it's a year.
And just so you all know, we are going to do. We will take a special order for the book that comes out in February today, so you can prepay for that. Okay, and those can be also there'll be tip-in signed copies. So we just need to go ahead and get that number so we can order the right amount for you.
So they send me a box with 1,700 pages that are blank, and there's all these instructions on how you have to sign and keep them ordered, and I have to sign all 1,700. And then when they print the book, they get put into the book, and it's. It's great because they didn't do it, and then they did it. Oh, here's 800. Now it's 7. It's like, okay, and so I got a call the other day, and they go, those are due at the end of the month, and I'm like, oh, I haven't started yet. And there's this just giant box. She made me put it away because it was just to inspire me. I had left it out. And it's kind of not attractive on the dining room table, so. So I guess those are the ones you're talking about.
Yes.
So they are really signed.
So if you want one of those,
and I live in fear of turning one of the pages upside down, and then someone gets in the book upside down. So
That would be extra collectible though.
you would think they get angry though. They say they get angry if you do that apparently.
Oh,
so they're like,
upside down. Yeah,
so I'm trying to be good there.
Don't get in trouble with your publisher.
No. That's now the printer. There's a different group. They can be mad at me. So.
Oh wow. Well, can we go ahead and take a couple of questions?
Yeah.
Okay, so in City Spies, they obviously have the virus.
Right.
And when we were reading the book aloud, we never knew how to say it ever.
Oh.
How do you say
the name of the virus?
Yeah.
Oh, I made that word up. Okay. There's border to it though. Okay, let me find it.
Let's myself.
So there's a thing called a Caesar cipher. And a Caesar cipher was used by Julius Caesar, and it was a code where the alphabet just slid over a certain number of letters. So if A was E, so that's 4 letters off, then E was FGHI. And that's how it works. So the idea of that, it is actually a Caesar cipher for Ebola, which is a real virus. And so it's just 5 letters off from Ebola, and it's XEUFT or something like that. And in my mind, you actually would always set all the letters. It wasn't a word. It was identified as a scientific notation of letters. But if you come up with a word, that's great. But it's not easy to pronounce. So I apologize for that. You forget sometimes that people read these things out loud. So I was so wanting to know about the audiobook for this. And it was released the same day the book was released. And they send you a code and you go on to the Simon. It doesn't work. It never works. And I was just dying to know. So I was on a book tour promoting the book. And so I bought my book the first thing in the morning, the day it came out, on audio, and paid full price, and listened to it on the airplane as I fly from city to city on the tour. And so I'm flying to Atlanta, and I'm on the flight to Atlanta, and I noticed, oh my goodness, this woman has had to use 7 different accents in 3 pages. Because in my mind, I just said, oh, she's from there, and she's from there, and she's from there, and I don't have to do the accents, and she's having to switch accents in the middle. And so I wrote to her from like the second stop saying, I'm really sorry about the accents. I never thought that someone would have to read them and go through all that. And you did a great job, but I'm really, really sorry about it. And now I write her the start of so I wrote her the other day when I was finishing this book, but she hadn't got it yet. So this is probably like 2 months ago. I said, hey, heads up, start practicing Korean, Chinese, and Russian accents, because there are a lot of them, and they're totally different. So now she has like 20 different accents she has to do in the books. So yes, so I wish I had a better answer, but however you pronounce it, it's absolutely right. There's no wrong answer for that. Was that the only question?
Do we have
So we
another
can handle
question
that.
in the room?
No, there's got to be more. Yes.
So far, Framed has been a trilogy. Dead City's been a trilogy, but City Spies, we're going into book 4.
So Dead City originally was only selling okay. And I didn't think there'd be more than 2. So I came up with the idea for Framed, and the same publisher bought it. And then they said, well, we want a sense of ending for Dead City, but we want to get started on this right away. So 1 more book. So it wasn't meant to be a trilogy, it just worked out to be. This one, Framed, reached the 3rd book when I had come up with City Spies that they were very excited about. I think there is a 30% chance that there'll be a 4th Framed book. So I have pitched the idea already, although I never heard back about it, so maybe it should be 20% or 10%. So I have a good idea for the 4th book in Framed. But City Spies will be, it's obviously I'm writing 4 now. I think it'll end up being about 6 or 7. And yeah, so we'll see. So they're not meant to be trilogies, they just worked out that way.
Okay.
And I do actually have another story for Dead City, but it's a prequel. It would be going back in time to when the mother was in middle school and she was an agent. Spy, yeah.
Just a quick one. Sir, how important is it to come up with that first sentence, and how do you do it?
That's not a quick one. That's the conversation we had. That's my wife is laughing there. That's the whole conversation we had on the car ride home. I spend on the first paragraph often over a month. Out of a 5-month period where I write the entire book, I will spend just trying to get that start to be right. And that's why I can recite them. Sarah looked at the water stain on the wall and imagined it was an island. She wasn't sure if it actually looked like one, or just because she so wanted to be in tropical paradise far from the small room in the Kings County Courthouse in Brooklyn. That's almost identical, verbatim. Okay. It was just after, it was not yet dawn, so the black-clad hijacker, no one saw the black-clad hijackers as they slipped onto the Marine Research Vessel Sylvia Earle.
That was pretty perfect.
This one's harder because I've not done it as recent. This is, it was dark, so when Paris looked at the traffic, he could see his reflection in the window. It's a lot of time, and it's because the decisions on a book are usually made that way, right? You pick up the book and you open it, and right? You never go past the first page. So when you're deciding, and I want that page, but also I want it to feel like you can't stop, which the trick is that doesn't mean it's action and explosion and this. And that comes from probably the film background, the TV
I was
background.
going to ask you that.
Because your movies start with wow and then credits most of the time. And I'm hooked, right? So you're trying to do that. So it is not a quick thing for me, but it's also by the end of it, I mean, I can go down all, this was the opening sentence is what convinced me. I hate zombies. I know that sounds prejudiced, but that's the start. Because I thought if you've read that line now, this is not only what the book is about, but the personality of the voice behind the book. Now, the harder thing for me was the fact that the other one starts with, my name is Florian Bates. I'm 12 years old, and a seventh grader at Allensdale Middle School in Washington, D.C. My favorite foods are egg rolls and pizza. I mean, they're stuck in I wrote that 6 years ago. Those were all first person told by the narration of the main character. The spy books are not. And so that was an extra hard challenge for me because that was something I had to do for the first time and I wasn't sure I could do it. So that was a lot more difficult discussions with my wife of self-doubt. Yes. You're worried to ask questions because you ask simple questions and I give really long answers. I see how this works. I totally get that.
Are there any other questions in the room you want? Oh, yes, sir.
Do you have any other ideas for a new trilogy or any other ideas for a new book topic?
Yes. So I think I know what the next one's going to be. And as I said, I can tell you the first line, because that one I got worried. Actually, this one came quicker than almost ending. And it was, if our name was Baker, we might have sold cupcakes. And if it was Walker, we might have taken care of people's dogs while they're on vacation. But it's Sherlock. So opening a detective agency just seemed like the thing to do. And it's about two girls in Miami who decide to become detectives.
I'd buy that.
Pre-sale right here.
I'm already hooked.
Pre-sale right here. And so that was the conversation I had with my editor this week about what to do next. I sent her the first 20 pages I had written of two series. I had two ideas. I liked the other idea a lot, but that one I leaned more towards, and that voice just spoke to me right away. And I realized I write mysteries. That I love to read them, and I like to write them. So, all right. So,
with your voice, do you want to go ahead and do a little bit of trivia?
We could do some trivia
to win a copy.
All right. So,
there's quite
okay.
a few.
I'm trying to think of how to do this to build this to the right thing. Okay. So, what's that?
Sorry. I was like, I'm looking at my kids. Who's in Battle of the Books last year?
Oh wait, see this is the problem I have. So are these Battles of the Books kids? Because I don't know how hard to make the questions versus the prize.
Well, we go from kinder, first grade, all the way up. So the young ones, it's just being read to. But my older kids have read it, at least City Spies, and maybe framed, for sure.
Okay, so we're gonna. So I think we'll do this. We'll do some questions. If you get a question, come and get to pick one of these if you want. So these are City Spies invisible ink pens, and you write with them, and they've got a little light in them, and it shows up. These are City Spies, the new book. Stickers, and these are there's sets of bookmarks. So each bookmark has a different character on the back. I like that in there. Okay, that's good. And then we'll do that, and then we'll figure out a special thing to give away for the third book. All right. So, not knowing the level of knowledge, I just wrote down the answers, and I will come up with the questions based on how easy these seem or not. So it may be a little uneasy at first. So Who's gonna? I'm not gonna be the one to pick who had their hand up first. So whatever that is.
that's my
Is that
job.
you? Is that a teacher thing? Do we have spotters out there? I don't know.
Colleen, you want to?
I am not. I'm not having any. If anyone's upset about the picking, you can aim. You can aim that somewhere else. Okay. All right. Who is the main character of City Spies?
Whoa, was it over
I
here?
don't know, it was between.
It was between,
Topper
yeah.
and Sophie. Yeah, Topper and Sophie.
I'm gonna do.
Again, I'm not
Go
doing it.
ahead, Topper.
A 12-year-old girl named Sarah.
You even got the tricky part of it. Okay, come pick something. Come pick something.
That was,
There we are.
that was pretty tricky.
You can pick one of any one, not all three, because we'll run out. You know what? No. That's a whole sheet. You get to take the whole
you
sheet.
take the whole thing.
And that one's bent. Leave that for someone who gets a question later. Yeah, take that one. There we go. Yeah. It's just like, I'm just gonna say you now, go to a bookstore like this. It's an amazing bookstore. Don't take the book on the front. Take the book like three books back that's not been leafed through every time, right? Let the person who's late to come get the book that everyone's touched. Okay. All right.
Wow.
Who saved Mother from the fire?
Ooh, that one was a tough
It's gotta
one.
be.
It was right in
Yeah,
here
it
though.
was. It could have been 1, 2, 3. Oh my God, this is so hard.
Uh, It was over here.
Okay.
in the middle. What do you think?
Madeline or I said 1, 2, or 3, so Madeline.
Yeah.
Rika?
Nope.
Nope. Okay,
No.
so then these two are next. So,
Okay.
go ahead.
A boy named Paris?
A boy in Paris is right. Come get a thing. Don't. You're worried. You're worried. You're gonna get one. No, you're gonna get one. Don't worry. No, don't worry. You keep not getting picked, and I think you keep raising your hand and not getting picked. That's all right. All right. I want the name, and I want to know what the letters mean for the place where the City Spies live.
Okay, in Battle of the Books, we talk it out. Okay.
This
Farm and its field of
you,
atmospheric research.
That's good enough for me. I'm going to go down.
that was pretty.
That's
What's
good.
the M? What's the M? Field of
Farm, it's not field. It's FARM stands for the Foundation for Atmospheric Research and Monitoring.
Monitor. Yes.
Okay.
Nice. Chase.
Okay. Who's the main character of Dead City?
Molly?
It was this gentleman right
Yep,
here.
Molly's right. Come get
It
one.
was Molly.
I don't have Dead City giveaway stuff.
Molly, you were that close.
There we go. All right. What's the name of the agency that oversees spies in the United Kingdom?
Actually, I saw.
But
her
she just
name
got a
go-
prize.
Oh, she did. So
No,
you're-
Michael got
I
the
gave-
prize.
No.
Oh,
Oh, that was sweet.
That was
of
very
you.
sweet.
Is it M16?
What were you gonna say?
MI6.
It's
It's-
MI6.
She's
A
correct.
lot of people
Nice.
think it's M16, but it's MI6. There you go. All right. Now they're gonna get a little harder. No, not really. Yeah. Which character is especially good at code breaking? Do we have someone who hasn't won something yet?
Yes.
I think right here.
Here.
Sarah?
No.
She thought it. Anybody think? Anybody know?
Okay.
Well, I know you know.
Now, if no one else has a hand up, then you can answer. Cat is right. Come and get a different prize. Oh, if you get so you guys know, if you take this, you have to plug that thing out for the battery to work for the lights. That's what that tab is for right there. Okay, so we're doing pretty good here. Okay. Paris is particularly good at playing what game? Chess is right. Come on up. Okay. God, I can't believe you guys know all this stuff. This is mind blowing.
They're paying attention.
They are definitely. You get quizzed? See,
We have to.
you have, well, now I feel bad. I don't want you to have to know this stuff. I want you to know because you like it. Okay, then. Which character loves things that go boom?
I don't know.
We entered that.
Sydney.
Sydney's right. Come and get something else. All right.
You can tell I'm a fan.
I can tell you're a fan. I like that. All right. All right. So we'll do a couple. You know what? Anyone that doesn't win something is still going to be able to come up and get something. So I don't want you to feel like you're really missing out on this very high end swag. But it is fun to win it, right? It is fun to. Now the book is going to be different. I don't know how we're going to figure out who gets the book. We can do the drawing for the book. We can do the drawing for the book. We'll do that. All right.
It's like you put your name and then in a big bowl.
No, you're going to draw. I want you to draw the characters. Totally different drawing. Totally different drawing. All right.
No, he was joking.
Who are the two main characters in Framed? You're going to get all three prizes. You're going to get all three prizes.
There was a young lady who has an answer.
That's all right. I think you pick. You pick.
I was gonna say back here.
Oh, okay. I was
She
looking the wrong
hasn't
way.
answered anything.
Florian and Margaret, come on up.
Good job.
All right.
That was a Battle of the Books last year.
Oh my goodness.
And then, is it a repeat this year? Is
Nope,
it?
City Spies.
Oh, got it. I knew we had a repeat.
All right. So, we could just end it here, do the drawing, or if you guys would like, I could read you a little bit from the first of the next book. Is that all
I
right?
would probably love
Okay.
that.
All right.
Yeah.
So this doesn't give anything away if you haven't read the second book, although I'm a big fan of reading them in order, but after the first one, it doesn't really matter 100%. So I'll read you the first chapter, and I will try to pronounce the things correctly. It's funny, I do get calls about the audiobook every now and then.
Oh,
And then they go, how do you say this? I'm like, I don't know. I looked it up. So I always try to act real smart, but it's not. Chapter 1, Billionaires Row. It was dark, and as Paris looked out at the traffic, he caught a glimpse of his own reflection in the window. I didn't quite get it right. There was nothing remarkable about his face. No feature or quirk someone would notice or remember. He'd been born in Rwanda, grew up in Paris, lived in Scotland, and was now in London. And in each of those locations, he learned to blend in and disappear. This was an important quality, because Paris wasn't just a schoolboy. He was also a spy. Blending in was essential. Unlike spies in movies whose modes of transportation range from jetpacks and mini submarines to bulletproof Aston Martins tricked out with rocket launchers, he was headed to his latest mission on a city bus. The number 70 to South Kensington, to be precise. That was the problem with being undercover and underage. You always needed somebody else to give you a ride. This is pathetic, he said, turning to Kat, who was sitting next to him. Absolutely pathetic. What is, she asked. He looked around to make sure no one was listening and then leaned in to whisper, we're about to break into one of the most expensive homes in London to steal a priceless work of art. And our getaway car is a bright red double-decker bus that does a max speed of 5 miles an hour. Kat laughed, which only frustrated him more. First of all, we're not stealing it, we're returning it, she answered in equally hushed tones. Or have you forgotten about the little treasure that's been sewn into the lining of your jacket? Secondly, once you put it back, why would anyone bother to chase us? Logic dictates that our getaway vehicle is irrelevant. He nodded reluctantly and admitted, okay, you may have a point there. Of course I do, she replied. Your problem is that you think being a spy is like being in an action movie. It's not. No? Oh, no, it's like being in an action movie. It's not? No. It's like eating lunch. It's like eating at the lunch hall at school. How do you figure that? Rio asked. You pretend you belong and hope nobody notices while you figure things out. Not to mention there's a decent chance the food's poison. He chuckled and saw that they were nearing the stop at Notting Hill Gate. Finally, this is us. He stood up to leave, but she stayed put, blocking his way. I'm not moving until you say it, she said firmly. Paris was the alpha, which meant he was in charge now that they were in the field. It also meant that he was the one who was supposed to say the phrase that officially started the mission. It was as much a good luck ritual as it was an operational command. Here, he replied, on the bus? Don't knock the bus, she said. James Bond was named after one just like this. What do you mean? When Ian Fleming was writing the first Bond book, he lived out in Kent and had to ride the bus back and forth to London, she explained. And he replied, not getting the connection, the bus from Kent to Victoria is number 007. You're joking, he said. Nope, that's where he got the name. And if it's good enough for Ian and James, it's good enough for you and me. Well, if you put it that way, he flashed a sly smile and said, this operation is hot. We are a go. Paris and Kat were part of the City Spies, an experimental team of 5 undercover agents aged 12 to 15 who MI6 used when they had a mission in which adult agents would stand out. In this instance, they were about to crash the Sweet 16 party of a London socialite named Tabitha Banks. The Secret Intelligence Service wasn't really interested in the birthday girl, but they were fascinated by her father. Reginald Banks was a multi-billionaire whose business dealings sometimes involved nefarious underworld characters and shadowy figures from foreign intelligence agencies. MI6 desperately needed to get an agent into his home, and this party offered a rare opportunity to access the highly secure mansion located on Kensington Palace Gardens, one of the most exclusive neighborhoods in the world. Testing comms 1, 2, 3, Paris said as they walked away from the bus stop. Can you hear me? He was using a covert communication device that looked like an everyday earbud to speak with team members monitoring the situation from a nearby safe house. Roger that, we hear you loud and clear, replied Mother, the MI6 agent in charge of the team. How about me? Asked Kat, testing her comms device. Perfect, Mother replied. We are ready to rock and roll. We've got Brooklyn on the computer and Sydney is... There was a pause as Mother turned to Sydney. What exactly are you doing? She gave him a look as if the answer were obvious. I'm standing by, just in case, she replied. We have Sydney standing by, just in case, Mother continued, although technically she's pacing more than standing. Relax, Sid, Paris said confidently. We've got this. She's not pacing because she's worried about the mission, Brooklyn pointed out. She's pacing because she's jealous that she's not the one doing it. This brought a round of laughs, and Sydney didn't even bother to disagree. She always wanted to be the alpha and hated it when she missed out on the action. Just remember that I'm here if you need me, she offered, ready and willing. Good to know, said Paris. We've almost reached the guard gate at the end of the street, Kat said. Any last words of wisdom? Yes, answered Mother, who cleared his throat and paused dramatically before saying, this mission is fraught, so don't get caught. He liked to use rhyming couplets nicknamed Motherisms to remind the team of important elements of spycraft. This one left Kat and Paris completely uninspired. Seriously? Kat replied. Is that the best you've got? Asked Paris. Well, I could have pointed out that if you get caught, it will not only involve the Metropolitan Police, but quite likely the Prime Minister, the head of MI6, the Foreign Secretary, the French Ambassador, and the President of Nepal, said Mother. But I didn't want to overwhelm you, and it's exceedingly difficult to make all of that rhyme. Fair points all, said Paris. Oh, there's one more thing, Paris, interjected Brooklyn. What's that? He replied. Try to remember that your microphone is very sensitive. Okay, but why am I remembering that? Because it will blow out our headsets if you squeal too loudly when KB5 take the stage, she said, eliciting more laughter. You are so very funny, Paris replied. Trust me, if I scream, it will be because I am in musical agony, although calling what they do to music is an offense to everyone from Beethoven to the Beatles. KB5 was a British boy band whose heartthrob members had their pictures plastered on bedroom walls across the globe. Despite Paris's opinion of their musical ability, they regularly performed to sold-out arenas, bursting with screaming fans. Tonight, however, they were playing a private concert for Tabitha's birthday. This was the advantage of having Reginald Banks for a father. Not only was he one of the richest people in the United Kingdom, but he also created KB5 and owned the record label that produced their albums. I like their music, Sydney offered. It's not too late if you want to swap roles. I don't want to keep reading though and trying. I mean, this goes on for a couple pages before I reach into it. But that's the start of it. And so what basically happens is they have to break into a house on the most exclusive neighborhood in London. which is all based on real stuff. So I do tons of research for this. So for instance, in planning the spy mission in this, I'm really lucky because there's a librarian in Virginia who really likes my books. And her husband used to run the CIA. And so he helped me plan the spy mission. I said, what would the CIA do in this situation? And he ran through all the steps with me. For this, it was tricky because the street, I really wanted the street. The street has embassies, which is how they're able to get on because they're posing as foreign people from those embassies. It has embassies and billionaire mansions, and Prince William all live on the street in London, right? And it's guarded by machine gun toting guards at the end of the streets. And there's signs everywhere saying no photography. So it's really hard for me to write about it. So it just happens, there's a friend of mine named Elizabeth Huelberg who writes the Shelby Holmes book, and she's had a book, I just forgot her book that came out. Don't tell her I forgot her book. And she lives in London now. And so she walked down the street and had a FaceTime call with me, but was really shooting the street so I could walk down the street in London and get footage that I wouldn't normally get, so I could describe everything right. And she's like, so help me, James, if I lose my visa because of this, I am really gonna be mad at you. But she did it, it was great. So so that's the book, and we're gonna give one of those away. So
Overt
you figure that part out.
Okay, so there are some chairs in here that do have numbers on the back. Unfortunately, not every chair does.
Don't we want everyone to be able to try to enter?
I'd like to. If you have one that doesn't have a number and there's some extra ones, yeah, please pick one. And if you don't have a number, I do have other numbers.
Yeah, let's let everyone at least buy for it.
Colleen, do you have the extra ones? She's got the two, but I've got the others on the
So we don't see faces, we just see us up here? Because we can't.
Colleen, do you have those other two? You know, you did 23, do you have 23? And I have the rest of them.
What young readers do we have that didn't get a number? We got just one back there. Okay, so we'll figure that
Anybody
out.
else? Does everybody have a number?
Except for her. Okay, so we want.
You need one?
Yep.
Come on, honey.
Sean up. Or we could just rip out each chapter and give everyone one chapter, but that might not be a very enjoyable experience. I'm not sure. So yeah.
Okay.
All right.
Does everybody have a number now? Okay.
Okay. So now we need
somebody to pick out.
Yeah.
A number.
I'll do that. I got.
You want to do
I'll
it?
take the heat of this one. All right. Who's number 19?
Wow.
Don't put it on the internet. All right. Anything else? Any other questions that we never got to?
Does anybody else have any other questions? I mean, I was going to ask the question about your research because as I was reading the books, I couldn't.
Tons of research. So like for Framed, I wanted to research at the National Gallery of Art, and they wouldn't help me. I think because they knew I was going to write about someone stealing a painting, which is odd because this week someone from the National Gallery helped me out on my, because they're okay helping me rob the British Museum, which I'm doing in this book. But always do research. For one of them, I went to the Kennedy Center because that's where book 2 in the Frame series takes place, and I took this behind the scenes tour, and I took pictures everywhere. And we're walking down, and then just like people charge me, the security, and they're like, we're like, what? They were watching me from, and I took pictures in the president's personal viewing box, which I thought was allowed. And they're like, you can't do that, you can't do that. And I'm like, okay. And I just went and I erased all the pictures. And then I went outside and I restored all the pictures. It's like, do you guys not even know how an iPhone works? You're protecting the president? I mean, come on. But I do try to go all the places and research. COVID made it impossible on this book, so this book was a challenge.
Okay.
And I don't think I could have afforded to fly to Moscow and Beijing while I'm writing too. So Yeah.
Well, this
All right.
is, anybody else got a question?
There was a
before we
question here, I
wrap up?
think. Yes.
How did you come up with the idea of City Spies?
So I just finished Vanished, the second book in the Frame series. And I finished the first draft and I sent it to my editor at 5 o'clock at night on a Friday. And by 9 o'clock that night, my wife and I were on a plane to London because our son was going to school in England. Less than 24 hours later, we were in front of Buckingham Palace and I'm figuring out what's the next book going to be. And we're in it. And then 3 days later, we were in France. And I thought, you know what? I want the next book to be in England and France because it's just really cool and fun. And so it didn't work for those characters. So I came up with the new thing. So it was really just that trip. And then your parents look at this. You won't make this one. I was able to deduct the trip on taxes because it was research, which was much more enjoyable way to go to Europe. So double win. All right. So I will go over there. I'm going to sign books,
Yes,
right?
yes.
Okay.
So you can purchase your